Imagine the following scene. A woman opens the door of her own home and comes across an unexpected invasion. Without ceremony, the mother-in-law crosses the threshold with a look of contempt and bluntly, "Don't launch to me, I came to visit my son, not you." And the husband? Instead of supporting his wife, he chooses his mother's side, moving her away with a gesture to help carry her bags. This is just one of the many situations that reveal a deep family drama, where love and respect are put to the test. It was a Friday afternoon when Ludmila Yurievna, sitting for 3 hours at the station, hit the impatient foot on the dirty floor of the waiting lobby. The train was delayed, and anxiety grew every minute. She looked at her clock, sighed, and changed her bulky bag next door. My poor Dimichka must be hungry, he thought, frowning. This Karina doesn't even know how to cook right. Last time, I saw her frying meatballs that looked more like breadcrumbs than meat. It was not any visit. 2 months earlier, Dimitri had married after only 6 months of dating, a decision her mother never supported. But for the first time, the son showed firmness and insisted on marriage. Now Ludmila came with a mission, to make sure her boy was happy and, if necessary, adjust some things. The announcement echoed through the speakers, "Attention, passengers. Train 123, Volgograd-Saratov, arrives at platform trays." She grabbed the bag and ran toward the wagon, determined to fulfill her plan. Meanwhile, Karina finished tidying up the house with satisfaction. Everything was impeccable, the cozy atmosphere, a fruit bowl on the table, and in the oven, a French roast, Dimitri's favorite dish. It was Friday, and she planned a special night with her husband, watching the movie they had been postponing. The apartment of 2 rooms, rented shortly after the marriage, was small, but full of light and personality. Karina had placed her soul in the decoration, carefully chosen curtains, decorative pillows on the couch, pictures on the walls. None of that excess of porcelain and heavy furniture that dominated Dimitri's mother's house. There, space breathed modernity and simplicity. The phone rang. "Hi, love," said Dimitri, with an unusual tension in his voice. "Hi, do you arrive soon? I prepared your favorite plate." He hesitated. "Look, something happened, my mother arrived without warning. I'm going to pick her up at the station and I'll bring her home." Karina froze. "The mother-in-law? In your home? On Friday night? And without any notice? Why didn't you tell me before?" He tried to stay calm. She herself didn't warn, called the train straight saying she wanted to surprise. Surprise achieved, Karina thought, but she just replied, "Okay, I'll wait for you." After off, she looked around with nervousness. Suddenly everything seemed out of place. I knew Ludmila would find any pretext to criticize. On the last visit, the mother-in-law passed her finger through the shelf, showing a non-existent dust, and still made a point of belittling since the paintings, "Do you call the art? Even the dishcloths, I have some equal to these, to wash the floor." Karina took a deep breath. "It's just 2 days, he tried to convince himself. "I can handle it." When the bell touched, she smoothed her hair and forced a smile. "Good night, Ludmila Yurievna," he greeted, opening the door. In front of her, a low, robust woman with red hair in an exaggerated hairstyle. Beside, Dimitri, visibly embarrassed, held a huge suitcase. "Hello, Karina," said the mother-in-law dryly, scanning her from top to bottom. "Dima, take my things to the largest room." "The biggest?" repeated Karina. "But this is our room." Ludmila ignored the observation and entered, as if she was the owner of the place. It was then that Tobik, the small terrier rescued a month ago, began to bark excitedly. "Take this animal from here," ordered the mother-in-law, backwards. "I'm allergic." "Sorry, but you never had the." "He reads the dogs," Karina countered, surprise. "When we were at your home in April, you even caressed the neighbor's Labrador. Don't tell me what I'm allergic or not." He raised his voice. "Ludmila. Dima, talk to his wife to remove this animal." Tobik still barked, feeling tension in the air. "Karina, maybe you can put it in the kitchen?" suggested Dimitri, uncertain. "He is only nervous with new people," Karina explained, taking the dog on her lap. It was then that the mother-in-law released the phrase that would echo in Karina's memory, "Don't launch to me. I came to see my son, not you." Karina was paralyzed, incredulous. She turned to her husband, waiting at least a gesture of solidarity. But Dmitri just lowered his eyes, guilty. Ludmila Yurievna, this is my house, said Karina, firmly, though in a low tone. And I ask you to respect me, just like our pet. Your home, laughs the mother-in-law, with theatricality. Dima, do you hear that? My son works all day to pay for this apartment, and she says it's hers. Mom, we both worked, Dmitri tried, but was interrupted. You explain to me everything later, son. Now, take my bags. I'm exhausted from the trip. Dmitri gave an apologetic look to his wife and stretched his hand to take the luggage. But Karina didn't move. On the contrary, he positioned himself between him and the door. Dima, we need to talk. Now, she said low, but determined. Then you talk, I intervened the mother-in-law. My boy, I'm so tired. Mom, wait just a minute, said Dmitri, looking at Karina with indecision. She pulled him to a corner. I understand that your mother has arrived without warning, and I'm willing to receive her. But she will not sleep in our room, and I won't tolerate that kind of treatment, he whispered, contained. She is only tired of the trip, Dmitri murmured. Tomorrow things get straightened. Dima, called the mother-in-law, impatient. Will I wait a lot? Suddenly, Dmitri straightened and, to Karina's surprise, pushed her slightly to the side, running to serve her mother. She couldn't believe it. The man who had never been rude to her had just faded her physically to please Ludmila. A wave of anger and hurt took over her. The mother-in-law smiled, triumphantly, and followed behind her son. But Karina blocked her way. You are not going anywhere, he said firmly. The two leave now. How do you dare? Dmitri returned, confused. Karina, doesn't start like this, he said, exhausted. Let's discuss this calmly. There is nothing to argue, she cut. You pushed me. Your mother disrespected me in my own home. They have 10 seconds to leave. Dima, will you allow this? Protested Ludmila. She's expelling her own mother. Say something. Dmitri's eyes jumped between the two women. The internal struggle was visible, the habit of obeying his mother versus the awareness that he had crossed a limit with his wife. Karina, time is over, he said finally, with a calm that sounded like surrender. But she had already made her decision. There would be no room for disrespect in your home. And that night Dmitri would have to choose, either the woman she loved, or the mother who choked him. The door knocked with a dry crack, echoing the staircase as a final verdict. Karina didn't need words to make it clear, that chapter was closed. With a precise movement, she locked the lock and leaned against cold wood, feeling the weight of the decision she had just made. It was not anger that throbbed in his veins, but a cold calm, the one that precedes the storm of irrevocable changes. Tabik, always attentive, leaned his hot body on his legs, as if he knew that his human needed that silent support. The cell phone vibrated on the coffee table. Once. 2. Then, without stopping. First, it was the call of Dmitri. She didn't even look at the screen. Then unknown numbers started. Flashing. Aunts, cousins, that network of relatives that the mother-in-law had certainly mobilized for family intervention. The messages arrived in a flood. Karina, please answer. My mother is already leaving. It only gives me a chance. Followed by you can't do this to me. I swear I'll fix it. And finally, the veiled threat, if you don't open this door, you'll regret it. She didn't respond to any. Not because it had nothing to say, but because some battles get in silence. Sitting in the armchair, with his fingers sunk into Beek's soft coat, Karina watched the shadows dance on the walls. 2 months. Just 2 months of marriage, and everything she believed to be solid collapsed like a castle of cards. The worst was not physical betrayal, although Dmitri's hand on his shoulder, pushing it hard, still burning as a mark, but emotional betrayal. He had chosen. Not once, but always. With every mother's acid commentary, every time of disdain, each time Karina swallowed her pride to maintain peace, Dmitri Kaleva. To this day. When the clock scored 10 p.m., a shy finger beating broke the silence. It was not the desperate punch before, but a hesitant, almost childish touch. Karina, it's me. Dimitri's voice sounded like it had been dragged for miles of guilt. She got up, approached the door without hurry, and asked, without opening, "Are you alone?" "Yes. My mother is at Aunt Galia's house." A trembling sigh escaped on the other side. She waited for 3 more seconds, 3 seconds that must have like an eternity to him, before turning the doorknob. Dimitri was unrecognizable. Her hair, usually so well combed, was wretched, as if he had pulled them into despair. The eyes, swollen and red, avoided hers. "Can I come in?" he murmured, and for the first time in a long time sounded like a request, not as a requirement. Karina retreated, not for kindness, but to evaluate him. "Why? To push me again?" He lowered his head as if she had slapped him. "I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know what you gave me. I swear I would never do that." "But you did," she cut, dries. "And that's not all. You chose her side. Again." The silence that followed was dense, loaded with the weight of every time it had felt invisible. Dimitri swallowed hard. "I didn't choose side. I just didn't want to fight. And then you let her humiliate me. Let me call me ungrateful. That I doubted our marriage in my own home. I know, he repeated, like a useless mantra. But you don't understand how she is. I grew up like this. It was always her and me against the world." Karina crossed her arms. "And now it's me and you against her?" He didn't answer. "I didn't need to. The question was the answer." She turned and walked to the kitchen, knowing that he would follow her. Tabik, always loyal, sat at his feet as Dimitri occupied the chair ahead as a defendant before the judge. "My mother raised me alone," he began, his shaking hands on the table. "My father left us when I was 3 years old. She worked in 2 jobs, slept 4 hours a night. I learned that her love was the only thing I couldn't lose." Karina listened, but didn't give in. "This does not give you the right to treat me as an intruder. Not even you assault me. I didn't beat. I walked away." "You pushed me," she corrected firmly. "Call things by name, Dimitri. Or are you going to spend your life justifying the unjustifiable?" He closed his eyes, as if the truth gave. "Yes. I pushed. And I have no excuse." "No, there is no," she agreed. "But do you know what's worse? That this just proves that I never knew the man I married. Because Dimitri I loved wouldn't do that. No, it's not like that." He exploded, finally looking at her. "I love you. Really. It's just that with my motherless mother. And it was complicated." "And what do you propose, then?" Karina challenged. "That I keep holding her curses. What, to live for fear of you losing control again? May our house be a battlefield where I am always the enemy?" "No. Of course not." He held his hands on the table, as if he feared she was going to disappear. "I'm going to talk to her. I will make her understand that she can no longer." "She won't understand," Karina interrupted with a bitter laugh. "Dimitri, she is 58 years old. He won't change now. Unless you choose." She pronounced the word like a knife. "Either you are a man who protects your family, I am me, or is a boy who runs to mom's skirt at the first sign of problem." The air between them became electric. Dimitri looked at his own hands, as if the answer were in them. When he finally spoke, his voice was a hoarse whisper. "I don't want to lose you." "Then prove it." 3 months later, Karina's phone vibrated with a known number. "Ludmila Yurievna." The voice on the other end of the line was calm, almost neutral, as if each syllable had been weighed before it was pronounced. "We can meet." The 3. It was not a request. It was not an order. It was that tone that only a Russian mother can employ, which leaves no room for refusal, but also offers no explanations. They met in an anonymous coffee, neutral territory, where the smell of fresh coffee and the buzz of the conversations of others served as a shock absorber to what was to come. Ludmila Yurievna arrived punctual, but she was not the same woman. Her face, previously always impeccably made up, now seemed thinner, as if the last few months had carved in her worry grooves. But the eyes were the same, sharp, calculating. Only this time, when they landed in Karina, there was no challenge. There was calculation. I thought a lot, he started, without looking straight at the daughter-in-law. The silence that followed was so dense that Dimitri felt the need to fill it. Mother's love, you know how it is, Mom. Karina almost laughed. Almost. Because it was not time for irony, nor for sarcasm. It was time to define limits. No lame excuses. His voice cut the air like a blade. Are you willing to respect my choice? Ludmila Yurievna took a long time. The fingers, before always so firm, played now with the bag, as if seeking something to cling to. When he finally raised his eyes, he went to fix them in Karina, not with submission, but with a kind of forced truce. I'll try. By Dimitri. It was not a request for forgiveness. It was not an admission of guilt. It was at most an armistice. And Karina, who had already learned to read between the lines of those grey eyes, knew it was the best she could. For now. 5 years later, their lives were different. The own apartment, small, but with windows that let the morning sun come in the bed. The walls decorated with pictures of a girl with easy laugh and rebel curls, Sophia. The smell of coffee mixed with incense that Karina burned after yoga classes. Dimitri's career, which had taken off at the technology company where he now led a team. And Tobik, the old dog who, against all the probabilities, was still there, snoring in the corner of the room like a memory's guardian. Ludmila Yurievna? She was not a fairy mad. Still solitated acid comments when I thought Karina's dinner was very experimental. I was still trying to give unquieted advice on how to create Sophia. But now, when he appeared always warning before, he brought toys to his granddaughter and even a premium bone to Tobik, as if he knew that the dog was the only one being in that house that would never judge her. Dimitri never raised his hand to Karina. That night had been his baptism of fire. He had finally understood that being a man was not just signing checks or carrying supermarket welcomes. It was to choose. It was being willing to lose her mother's approval to gain respect for the woman she loved. One night, after Sophia fell asleep with an open fairy tale book on her belly, they stayed at the counter, a red wine breathing between them. Karina turned the glass between her fingers, watching the dark liquid reflect the light of the moon. Do you regret it? He asked softly. From that day. When I put you and your mother out. Dimitri did not answer immediately. He took a sip, left the bitter taste of the tannin spread through his tongue before speaking. No. His voice was firm, without hesitation. That was the day I became a real man. He reached out, covering hers. Thank you for not being afraid to tell me the truth. And thank you for not giving away. Karina smiled. Because she knew, that story could have ended in another way. With doors knocking, with injured pride, with a family that never really existed. But they had chosen different. And now, there, with the hand of her husband intertwined with her and Tobik's soft snoring from the room, she understood that they had built something rare, a family that didn't bow to fear but rose together. As if he knew they were talking about him, the old dog got up with difficulty and went to Karina, resting his head on his lap. The silent catalyst of everything. The dog that, unintentionally, had forced them to see what really mattered. And for the first time in a long time, no one had to say anything else.